In Nathaniel Hawthorne's The Birthmark, a brilliant doctor marries a beautiful girl, but is troubled because the one imperfection on her face is a small hand-shaped birthmark. Desperate to rid her of the blemish, he concocts a potion to erase it. However, the potion ends up killing his wife, and his lust for beauty destroys his love. In The Scarlet Letter, Arthur Dimmesdale is secretly the father of the outcast Hester Prynne's illegitimate child. Every day, he regrets his decision to sleep with Hester, tormenting himself both emotionally and physically, never forgiving himself, always praying and whipping himself with a cat o' nine tails. Similarly, in The Crucible, John Proctor regrets sleeping with Abigail because he loves Elizabeth and he hurt her very deeply when she found out about his affair. Because of his actions, the Proctors' relationship is strained. In Ethan Frome, Ethan and Xena are physically isolated from the rest of their town, living far out of the way and in a large, cold farm. Ethan is forced to care for the farm and for Xena. He is emotionally isolated from everyone, and he is a mystery to the town of Starkfield. In The Catcher of the Rye, Holden isolates himself from everyone else, thinking the world is a lot of phonies. He leaves his home to leave the society he has been living in, full of people he doesn't like. He isolates himself even from his love interest, Sally, when he tells her she can be a royal pain in the ass sometimes. In The Merchant of Venice, Shylock is isolated from everyone in Venice because of discrimination. Because he is Jewish, he is beaten up and disgraced by Christians. In The Red Badge of Courage, Henry feels isolated because he knows he is a coward and he wants to be like his brave comrades. He felt alone in space when his injured comrade had disappeared. His failure to discover any mite of resemblance in their viewpoints made him more miserable than before. No one seemed to be wrestling with such a terrific personal problem. He was a mental outcast. In Nathaniel Hawthorne's Rappaccini's Daughter, the daughter is completely isolated from the rest of the world. She is poisonous and has nobody except for her father. When Giovanni falls in love with her, becomes poisonous himself as a result, and ends up killing her with an antidote that was supposed to rid her of her poisonous nature, he himself is left isolated. In The Scarlet Letter, Roger Chillingworth is filled with rage upon discovery that his Hester has slept with another man. He swears that he will have the soul of the man who is guilty of this, and when he discovers the culprit is Dimmesdale, he is bent on slowly killing him. In The Crucible, Abigail wants revenge on Elizabeth for firing her from her service because she found out Abigail and John were having an affair. She plants a doll in the Proctor's house, sticks a knife in her own body, and pretends that Elizabeth has used voodoo magic to hurt Abigail. When Mary Warren tries to tell Judge Danforth that the girls are all faking, Abigail gets revenge by making it seem like Mary Warren was using her witch magic against them, pretending she was possessed and repeating everything Mary was saying. John Proctor wants revenge on Abigail for putting his wife in jail and in line for the noose, and he confesses that she is a whore and that he slept with her. However, this backfires as Abigail denies the charges and John is accused of witchcraft and condemned to hang. In Edgar Allan Poe's The Telltale Heart, the heart of the old man seeks revenge against his murderer by driving him into pure insanity, seeming to beat under the floorboards until, in a fit of agony and passion, the murderer confesses himself. In The Merchant of Venice, Shylock seeks revenge against Antonio, because Antonio has disgraced him for years, all because he is Jewish. Until the end, Shylock demands a pound of flesh of Antonio in revenge for all those kicks, spits, and taunts. Shylock isn't the only one who seeks revenge. Portia wants revenge against Shylock, and gets it when she takes away from him his religion and all his possessions. In Ethan Frome, Ethan falls in love with his and Xena's servant, Maddie. He finds out that she returns his feelings, but they cannot do anything about it because Ethan doesn't have the money to elope with her, or the heart to leave Xena to her own devices when she is so ill. When Xena fires Maddie, Ethan cannot stand the thought of losing her, and Maddie suggests that they commit suicide together, sledding down a hill and spending their last moments together and killing themselves at the impact of the sled hitting the large tree. However, it doesn't work. Maddie is completely paralyzed and Ethan is half paralyzed. Ethan ends up losing full use of his legs, and Maddie and the love he shared with her, as her personality sours over the years. In Catcher in the Rye, one of the people Holden truly loved was his brother, Allie. He views Allie as a symbol of innocence, and that is the one thing he wants to do, the thing that matters most to him, the innocence of children. He says, "Anyway, I keep picturing all these little kids playing some game in this big field of rye and all. Thousands of little kids and nobody's around. Nobody big, I mean. Except me. And I'm standing on the edge of some crazy cliff. What I have to do, I have to catch everybody if they start to go over the cliff. I mean, if they're running and they don't know where they're going, I have to come out from somewhere and catch them. That's all I do all day. I just be the catcher in the rye and all. I know it's crazy, but that's the only thing I'd really like to be. When Allie dies of leukemia, a part of Holden dies. In the Crucible, Abigail is in love with John Proctor, but she ends up losing him because she got his wife sent to jail. She can't save him from what she herself started, the horrible witch hunt. She runs away, never to be seen again. John Proctor loves his wife, and loses her for a time because of his infidelity. He ends up losing his life and his beloved Elizabeth because of Abigail. In The Merchant of Venice, Shylock is a prime example of love and loss. He loves his riches, his successes, his religion, his possessions, and ends up losing them all. He says, "I never felt it till now. 2,000 ducats in that, and other precious, precious jewels. I would my daughter were dead at my foot and the jewels in her ear. Would she were hearsed at my foot and the ducats in her coffin," showing that his beloved possessions mean even more to him than his own daughter. In The Red Badge of Courage, when Henry's good friend Jim Conklin dies and he sees that Jim looks like wolves ate out of his flesh, he is full of rage and sadness. This is the first time Henry has lost someone dear to him. In A Farewell to Arms, Frederick loses his friends Pasini and Aima, which makes him sad, but when he loses Catherine, there are no words. Frederick feels angry and bitter when she dies, and he has now learned the same lesson Catherine learned when her fiancé died. Once someone is dead, they're dead. In Ethan Frome, though Maddie and Ethan love each other so, they have to keep it from Zena. There is a constant fear that Zena will find out about their affair and send Maddie away, making it impossible for them to be together. In The Scarlet Letter, Arthur Dimmesdale is racked with fear that someone will find out about his deepest secret, sleeping with Hester. He is also afraid of Chillingworth when he finds out that Chillingworth has evil intentions, and his fear of being found out grows even more. In The Crucible, fear rules the town. Everyone is petrified that they will be next to be accused of witchcraft. There is no stopping the wicked girls. The judges believe the children to be a voice from God, and once someone is accused, there is no getting out of it.
I only ask you to consider.
What shall I consider? Have I seen my blood running out of my flesh, or have I not? Is this my reward for risking my life to be mistrusted and questioned and denied?
Oh, my child, I do not mistrust.
Rebecca Nurse, the saintliest woman you ever saw in your life, was accused of witchery by Goody Putnam for the murder of her unborn babies and condemned to die. Everyone lives in fear. Accusations fly everywhere, and a total of 19 people are killed on baseless accusations. Edgar Allan Poe's story, The Pit and the Pendulum, is completely about fear. In it, the narrator is imprisoned in a pitch-dark cell and condemned to die. All he has to eat is spicy meat, and when he takes a drink of water, he falls instantly asleep, only to awake tied securely to a slab. He can see a large pendulum with a blade on the underside slowly, agonizingly descending toward him. A swarm of rats are drawn by the scent of the meat and start to nibble at it, going all over his body. Terrified and thinking quickly, the narrator manages to spread the meat over some of his ties, so the rats chew through his bonds. He frees himself just in time. However, the terror isn't over yet. The walls start to close in on him, pushing him towards a very deep pit with water at the bottom. He is saved, just in time from falling in. In The Telltale Heart, the old man experiences fear when he can sense a figure at the door, knowing the noises he heard are much more than a wind or a mouse. For an entire hour, both the murderer and the old man lay motionless, the old man scared out of his wits. When the murderer springs out, the old man gives a blood-curdling scream! In The Merchant of Venice, when Antonio is being secured to a chair and he is watching Shylock sharpen the blade that will cut out a pound of his flesh, he is absolutely terrified. He is only glad that Bassanio was there to watch his death and know that it was all for him. In The Red Badge of Courage, Henry is afraid of running away from battle, and when faced with the Confederates, that's what he does. He retreats into the forest and tries to deny his cowardice, but his fear is brought out and is very real by the approaching Confederate soldiers. More than anything, Henry wants to be brave, but he can't stand his ground.